Good afternoon, and thank you all for being with us. I'm Pam Henriksen, and I have the honor of serving as the current chair of the University of Missouri Board of Curators. As you know, the Board of Curators is the governing entity of the UM system. Each campus, the health system, and University Extension are valuable contributors to the economic vitality of this state, our region, and country. All of our institutions come together to educate and to better prepare a workforce for Missouri and beyond. Preparing our students means continuous improvement and constant learning. With this responsibility comes the task of ensuring that our university fulfills its mission to the best of its ability and in the best interests of our students, faculty, staff, and all the citizens of the state of Missouri. In what many would describe as an unprecedented year in our university's history, we, as leaders of this institution, have squarely faced the experiences of last fall, learned from them, and have used them to navigate our course forward as we build an even stronger university. We're excited to come before you today with several updates on progress being made system-wide and to provide an opportunity for you to hear firsthand from us the great things the University of Missouri is doing for our community and the state. Last November, we recognized the need to coordinate efforts system-wide to address the societal issues that have challenged our campuses, system administration, and our board. We also recognized that this could not be done alone. The board has taken several decisive actions to bring clear intention and sustained focus to ensure our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are permanently sound, strong, and responsive to the needs of the entire university family. As a result of the initiatives that the Board of Curators announced last November, the UM system has hired its first ever Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Kevin McDonald, from whom you will hear shortly. In addition, and also as a result of the initiatives established by the board, each campus now has a CDO reporting directly to its chancellor. The system also has made funds available to conduct campus climate surveys and to provide diversity education and mental health support to our students. As we near the conclusion of the system-wide diversity audit, which was another Board of Curators initiative, the Diversity Task Force, appointed by President Middleton, will develop recommendations on short and long-term strategies for the President and the Chief Diversity Officer. I want to commend our leaders, Dr. McDonald, President Middleton, Chancellor Foley, and of course our other campus chancellors, general officers, and countless others for their leadership during a unique time in our university's history. I want to especially commend and thank Mike Middleton for coming out of retirement to serve. Mike, your commitment to the UM system and to your alma mater is unwavering, and we thank you very much. As you are well aware, another task the board has been focused on is the appointment of the 24th president of the UM system. This crucial hire will lead the university into its next chapter. He or she will be responsible for taking what we've learned this past year to develop and implement a vision for our beloved institution. The process is progressing nicely, and we remain committed to ensuring the best possible outcome for our entire system, its campuses, our great faculty, staff, alumni, and students, as well as all the citizens of the state of Missouri. The leadership of this university is proud of our students, faculty, and staff. We have seen tremendous efforts system-wide to improve the communities in which we interact by building on lessons learned and focusing on the many things we wish to accomplish together. It's now my pleasure to introduce MU Interim Chancellor Hank Foley. Dr. Foley.
Thank you, Chair Hendrickson. Let me also echo your thanks to all who are with us this afternoon. On November 10th, 2015, I officially stepped into the role of Chancellor at the University of Missouri. Since that time, I'm very proud of how well the MU leadership team has performed in this time of challenge, and I'm honored to be serving in the role of Chancellor over these past 10 months. This fall, we find ourselves approaching 1 year since our university was in the national spotlight. With all the benefits of hindsight, perspective, and continuing conversations that challenge us to be better. And with this benefit of time comes the realization that there was no one cause of last fall's events, and there'll be no one solution going forward. but I can assure everyone of two things. First, it truly is a new day at Mizzou with new people and new approaches. And second, we are working tirelessly to make our campus more inclusive and welcoming for all students, staff, and faculty. Let's not forget that for more than 175 years, we've made a difference in the state of Missouri, and our impact can be felt around the world. This is in part because of our dedication and commitment to academics. That's never flagged. We are among the 30 best public higher education institutions in the country, and are only one of 4 institutions that's both a member of the AAU and the SEC. Since November, we've had 5 faculty members named as Fellows of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, a very prestigious position. 3 named to the National Academy of Inventors. Gross licensing income to the university went up to $14 million last year. That's nearly doubled over the previous year, and it's higher than we've ever had. Significantly, we also surpassed our development goal in the midst of what some saw as a very difficult year. We raised more than $170 billion despite the apparent turmoil and the dire predictions. Universities are institutions that are made of people. People from the past, people here in the present, and people who we don't necessarily know yet that will be with us in the future. Now, as in the past, we need outstanding faculty, staff, and students in order to thrive. I'm happy to report that we've continued to attract the highest caliber individuals to Mizzou in recent months. Kevin McDonald, to my left, who you hear from in a minute, is a nationally recognized leader on the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion. His work is steeped in research and best practices. We've hired Patty Haberberger, our new Vice Chancellor of Human Resources. She's a Mizzou alum who joined us recently from the St. Louis University with more than 25 years of experience in HR. Marshall Stewart is our new Vice Chancellor of Extension and Engagement. He is nationally recognized for his work both in rural and urban communities and came to us from the North Carolina State University. And of course, as you all remember, we recently also hired Jim Stirk from San Diego State University as our new athletic director. Each of these people came here to take up permanent positions and to affect the future of this great school. The diversity of our faculty, though, continues to be a priority and a challenge for us at MU. That's why today I'm announcing that we will set aside $1 million from IP revenues from the past year to be used to bring in postdoctoral fellows from underrepresented groups, bring them here to Mizzou with the goal of retaining them later as faculty members. Kevin McDonald and Mark McIntosh are both working together to bring this program to fruition and to do so now. Let's also talk about our students for a moment. Yes, student enrollment is down about 5% overall, and that presents us with some new financial challenges. But I can tell you we've stepped up. We are meeting those challenges right now this year. But let me also point out some other things about the first-year class. 29% of our incoming freshman class ranked in the top 10% of their high school graduating classes. 50% of them ranked in the top 20%. The average ACT score is 26, and we have 134 valedictorians among this class this year. But perhaps even more telling than any of those numbers is this number, and that is that our retention rate of those who went from the freshman to the sophomore year is the third highest that it's ever been in university history. So the people who came here and who were here last year came back again. We recognize, though, that we did lose some prospective students and some current students. We take that seriously. For those who did leave, weren't sure about us and whether or not to come back this year or whether to matriculate here, honestly, we're working very hard to regain your trust and to change your opinion. Come back and see how things really are at MU, not how they're perceived to be. All of us at MU have been engaged in making things better, and I'm confident that this will continue. Another new person we've hired recently is Palema Morris, our new permanent enrollment manager. Palema, who previously led Bryn Mawr's enrollment efforts, will officially join us in just 2 days on September 15th. Now, throughout the spring and the summer, we've worked very hard. We've reached out continuously to prospective students. We've met with them, we've met with their parents, their advisors, their guidance counselors, and we've done so across the state and the region. We've increased the number of students and parents that we actually bring here to the campus so they could see for themselves what Mizzou is like up close and in reality. We've enlisted current students, deans, and other leaders in that student recruitment effort. We've increased our full-time in-state and out-of-state recruiters. We're marketing Mizzou much more aggressively than we ever have in the past. And perhaps most importantly, we've made safety of our students, faculty, and staff our #1 priority. Our campus police force has the highest training and credentials of any police force in the state, save for the state police themselves. And we continue to allocate funds to this force to increase its size and its diversity at the same time. We also have a robust mass notification system, numerous training programs, and long-established partnerships with the City of Columbia to collectively help ensure the safety and well-being of all people on our campus. We know, however, that our work is not limited to only rebuilding our enrollment or restoring our reputation. Rather, last year's events cast Mizzou in the national spotlight. And while we all agree perhaps we could have handled things better, we embrace being part of that national conversation that's taking place now around the United States. Universities like Mizzou are the place for these discussions to happen, and we are not shying away from them. Part of these ongoing discussions include establishing a framework for inclusion, diversity, and equity, and Kevin McDonald, Dr. McDonald, will discuss that in more detail in a moment. In closing, let me affirm for all listening that the foundation for this framework and all that we do is rooted in our core values, our 4 core values: respect, responsibility, discovery, and excellence. To be true to our traditions and our legacy, these must be more than mere words on paper. For that reason, a group of faculty, staff, and students came up with what we call the Mizzou Pledge Program. It's a program and a pledge with specific actions and behaviors that we all seek to exhibit. They are our core values, and we seek to live them out on a daily basis. We want to ensure that this campus, more than any other, is a place where all feel welcomed and safe. And as Chancellor, I promise you that there's nothing more important to me than this goal. Now let me turn this over to Dr. McDonald.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Foley, and good afternoon, everyone. You know, I just joined the UM system and MU in June, and I've had to get up to speed rather quickly over the past 3.5 months. But during that time, I found that an energy and a collective will reside in the members of the Missouri family that desire to learn from the past in order to inform and have a transformative impact on the present and the future. I've heard from and actively listened to students, to staff, to faculty, to alumni and local community members who are committed to dialogue, healing, strategic planning, and maybe most importantly, to action-oriented implementation. Because of that, I have great optimism for the future of our university system. I'm also very encouraged by the progress we have already made and continue to make in critical areas. For example, MU has added $600,000 to its Faculty Incentive and Excellence Fund to target the recruitment and retention of diverse faculty. With these additional funds, more than $1.3 million will support the diversity faculty recruitment and retention efforts this academic year. In an effort to strengthen outreach efforts to diverse populations on campus, the MU Counseling Center hired 2 psychologists of color, a post-intern of color, and additional intern of color, and Dr. Nadia Bethley to serve as both a counselor and the center's first diversity coordinator. We are continuing our partnership with the State of Historical Society of Missouri to host the African American Experience in Missouri lecture series. And more than 1,000 MU grads came together earlier this spring to create the Black Alumni Network. The network has been a way for alumni to connect with one another and to support our student body. And it has paved the way for discussions around the creation of additional multicultural alumni networks. We've initiated a new student orientation program called Citizenship at Mizzou. And this required interactive program focuses on making individuals aware of the differences that exist among us and the important impact that exposing themselves to and engaging with this diversity will have on their academic and social journey here at Mizzou and after graduation. The feedback on this program has been overwhelmingly positive, and I'd like to share some of that feedback with you now.
The Citizenship at Mizzou program was designed to inspire all of us to really think about ways of learning how to communicate with each other, learning how to build a relationship. We decided that we would focus on the 4 core values of the University of Missouri, understanding that if we can all aspire to and believe in these values, that we would all be better citizens. And so we focused on respect, responsibility, discovery, excellence.
I found the talk to be pretty refreshing. It wasn't just a paternalistic lecture, and there was a bit of discourse among the students and the presenters.
I kind of thought it was just going to be the typical, like, kind of for show diversity. Once I was done with it, I saw it was kind of more of like an anti-safe space sort of setting where it's say whatever you want, anything goes. We're going to have an open discussion.
It made me realize that some people will connect to different things a little differently. Like in English class, we might all read a book, but I might have my own opinions and might connect to it differently than somebody else, and that's perfectly okay.
It truly opened my eyes that you can't aggressively try to discuss race or culture or your gender, but you have to really take time to communicate.
I think it's really helped me be a lot more comfortable knowing that I'm in a school that cares and embraces everybody's differences.
Success means that these students are looking for more opportunities to engage with sometimes very difficult conversations, that these students are continuing to think about the values that we talked about on their first day.
And this is why we come to the University of Missouri of Columbia, is to learn and to grow and develop. And so truly, citizenship at Mizzou helped me generate the ability to communicate in a positive nature.
I'm really incredibly grateful to the faculty, staff, and students who've played an important hand in providing leadership to the creation of this program. And so the work continues, and because we recognize the need to engage external experts in this process, in collaboration with Interactive Business and Inclusion Solutions, or the IBIS Consulting Group, we have taken substantial steps forward on an audit of our diversity and inclusion policies and procedures. The audit includes focus groups and interviews with students, with faculty and staff, and we want to utilize the audit's findings and the recommendations that result to inform our efforts to identify and implement right-fit strategies that will have a transformative impact on our campus. Now, since my arrival, my overarching and immediate goal has been to work collaboratively with our UM and MU communities to create a strategic diversity and inclusion roadmap that meaningfully connects our diversity and inclusion efforts to various aspects within our organization. The National Dialogue has focused on 4 areas, and those 4 areas are what I've used to start the conversation and vetting process within our campus communities. Those areas are access and success, campus climate and intergroup relations, education and scholarship, and the overarching institutional infrastructure. The first area is access and success, and is focused on current and prospective students, staff, and faculty. In this area, we'll reevaluate our financial aid and scholarship offerings because we know that to increase our student diversity, we'll have to become more competitive with our financial packages, particularly for those students who gain admission and want to become part of our campus communities but can't afford to do so. And those explorations are currently underway. And when students arrive on campus, we will provide resources that support and strengthen their social and academic connections and that create a sense of belonging that positively impacts academic performance, retention, and graduation. We will invest in special initiatives to increase enrollments from historically underrepresented and underserved populations. An example is the recently announced New School of Journalism program that will identify, recruit, and educate students from underserved communities to increase diversity in the School of Journalism and in the media industry. The School of Journalism will create mentorship, internship, and job placement opportunities with industry leaders and passionate alumni in ways that will support the personal, academic, and professional development of high school students through college and their first years of their careers. As it pertains to faculty, our goal is to double the percentage of historically underrepresented faculty over the next 4 years. This includes African Americans, Hispanic, Latino, Latinas, and Native Americans. Currently, 6.7% of our faculty represent these groups, so our goal is to increase this percentage to 13.4% in 4 years. This effort would allow MU to increase its faculty of color beyond the national average, where currently 5% of faculty are African Americans, 3% are Hispanic, Latino, Latina, and 1% are Native American. One initiative that we believe will help us accomplish this goal has already been mentioned by Chancellor Foley: the creation of a postdoctoral cluster hire program aimed at increasing the tenure-track faculty diversity and attracting emerging scholars. Individuals will be hired for 2 years with an opportunity to transition to tenure-track positions following the completion of their fellowships. We believe that this program will also support the retention of our faculty because participants will get a jump start on their research and be exposed to a preparing future faculty curriculum that will be helpful when they begin their tenure-track journey. A second effort will be the establishment of a new relationship with the Southern Regional Education Board, an organization that works with states to improve public education at every level, from early childhood through doctoral education. Specifically, the SREB has a doctoral scholars program that provides multiple layers of support, from financial assistance and research funding to mentoring, advocacy, and job placement. This relationship will not only allow MU to support its doctoral students of color and their faculty advisors, but it will also provide us with an opportunity to recruit for faculty positions at one of the largest conferences of doctoral students of color in the country. One additional initiative will be the creation of an Eminent Scholars Program to facilitate a mentoring relationship between a newly hired assistant professor and a prominent researcher in their field. This relationship will be established to provide a connection for the MU faculty member to their larger research community in order to enhance their success as they advance through the ranks of academia. The second area we'll focus on is campus climate and intergroup relations. We will strive to maintain a climate that is respectful and values the different perspectives and experiences of every student, faculty, and staff member on campus. Examples of how we'll make this happen include utilizing the findings of our upcoming campus climate survey and diversity audit to affirm current efforts that are having a positive impact, and to implement new initiatives aimed at improving identified areas in need of development within our campus environments for all of our campus community members. To accomplish this, we'll have to be transparent, we'll have to take ownership, and we'll have to invest resources in areas that need improvement. Our third area of focus is education and scholarship, with a goal to graduate students who are prepared to enter the global marketplace. We realize that we can't accomplish this without curricula that incorporate diversity. Some efforts currently exist with academic diversity requirements in schools and colleges like our School of Journalism, the College of Education, and the School of Nursing. But additionally, our College of Arts and Sciences and the Truman School of Public Affairs recently launched a diversity requirement for their students. To support our faculty, students, and staff engaged in research with connections to diversity, we will offer Inclusive Excellence grants that will provide financial support towards their research. Additionally, we will engage in a partnership with the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity, a national organization dedicated to providing mentoring, research, and writing support for postdoctoral fellows, for junior faculty, for senior faculty, and for academic administrators. They also offer a Faculty Success Boot Camp that we will sponsor some of our faculty to attend, while also developing a complementary faculty support program internally. We have and will continue to create professional development programs designed to improve the multicultural awareness of faculty and staff. And this academic year, we will provide additional awareness opportunities for our senior leadership and our board of curators. The final area of focus is our institutional infrastructure. We recognize that the right infrastructure can be a key factor in sustaining our diversity and inclusion efforts. To that end, seeking private donors, corporate, and foundation partners to help us support our diversity and inclusion efforts will be vitally important. Utilizing the diversity audit findings to reflect on our current policies, processes, and practices to identify areas in need of modifications or enhancements in the area of equity, diversity, and inclusion will be key. Finalizing our inclusive excellence framework currently being vetted so that we can annually assess our diversity and inclusion efforts is paramount to our success. And we will continue to build our multicultural alumni networks to help us meaningfully engage our alumni and support prospective and current students. So you see, change is, in fact, happening, and it will continue to take dedicated leadership, committed to action, and an engaged campus community to make these goals a reality and to make our diversity and inclusion practices part of our organizational fabric. Every member of the University of Missouri community deserves our unrelenting pursuit of inclusive excellence, and we will work tirelessly to leverage the collective will and energy that currently exist to reach this goal. You see, everyone I've encountered is extremely passionate about Mizzou and the UM system and wants the very best for our University of Missouri community. One of those individuals is our current interim president, Mike Middleton, who has dedicated his entire professional life to this organization and to the important work of diversity and inclusion taking place within it. President Middleton.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And thank you all for being here. I'm very pleased that you're able to be here today to share this opportunity to receive an update on what's been happening at the University of Missouri system and at MU over the past 10 months. The leaders you see before you and the groups that each of us represent are committed to transparency, which is why it's important to have this opportunity to bring you here today. It's a welcomed opportunity and a necessary opportunity. I'd like to provide you with a bit of clarity, confidence, and understanding that the University of Missouri system is moving in the right direction. The university has undoubtedly faced challenges, not just in the past year, but throughout its history. We're not alone in this regard. Several of our peers have faced similar challenges. Institutions of higher education are unique and very fortunate in that their infrastructure allows them to bring brilliant minds to the table to navigate adversity, to take on tough issues, and to learn from their experiences. And this is exactly what we've spent the last year doing. The University of Missouri system is resilient. Challenges motivate us to remain steadfast in addressing our issues head on, with everyone at the table. Board Chair Hendrickson shared with you a quick overview of progress on the initiatives that the board announced last November. The appointment of Dr. McDonald as CDO, the creation of the system-wide task force to work through the recommendations from the system-wide audit, and the need to make resources available to support immediate needs and future initiatives. These are significant accomplishments done in a short period of time in an environment that has been dynamic, ever-changing, and fraught with uncertainty. Upon my interim appointment, the board outlined their initiatives as my priorities as president, and I have worked intently to accomplish them. As a result, on each of our campuses, we have had invigorating conversations around the need for not only diverse learning environments, but environments that are entrenched in inclusivity, where each voice and idea is heard and respected. For MU specifically, Interim Chancellor Foley has outlined recent key hires he has made to chart their new day forward. In addition to several accomplishments in the midst of a challenging year, and this speaks to the resiliency of our flagship campus, as well as to the University of Missouri system. What Dr. McDonald has presented today is a strong framework, committed to providing the best experience we can for every student, faculty, and staff member on each of our campuses. With this framework will come an awareness of programs already in place and the opportunity to look for additional programs and initiatives to activate system-wide. And that's the beauty of having a four-campus system. It is that we have the rare opportunity to take best practices from each campus to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts. We have done this successfully for decades, and will continue to prepare our students to excel in the companies and communities they represent after they leave our campuses. As one of the state's greatest assets, collectively our campuses graduated more than 18,000 students last May, fueling our state's economy with a talented workforce for generations to come. The entire University of Missouri system, our campuses, extension, and the health system must serve as a model for the kind of interactions and varying perspectives that define our increasingly diverse institution. While we have shared tangible examples of success and future plans for more success with you today, we know full well that this is just scratching the surface. We're dedicated to constant improvement, which means constantly assessing what we have in place, what is working, and what we can do better to ensure that our students are receiving the best quality education from this premier university. In everything that we do, the UM system should desire to be the envy of all other university systems in our nation. To achieve this ambitious goal, and to be the university that each of us imagines, we must come together with our varied perspectives to create this aspirational environment. I've been both honored and proud to serve as interim president these past 10 months because this university has been the foundation of my career and my livelihood. When the board asked me to take on this interim role, it was only my love of this institution that I agreed to accept their charge. We've made incredible progress, and the leadership team in front of you is uniformly proud of each person that represents this university. For all of those who also love this institution, I know that we will build upon the progress you've heard about today. We will continue the tough conversations that we've been having, and we will live out each day making Missouri's premier land-grant public higher education institution better and better. Thank you.
Okay, now we will start the Q&A portion of the format this afternoon. So we'll start out with Ashley Jost, the Post-Dispatch. First up.
I didn't realize you were going in order. What are some of the things that you guys are hearing from students on what you still want to hear about what's going to change looking forward? Concerns that continue to come up among students.
I think what I've heard pretty consistently is that students still want an opportunity to just engage in really meaningful dialogue, and that there's an important aspect of healing that still needs to take place, right? What happened last fall was significant, and I think the students recognize the importance of dialogue and want to have opportunities to have spaces created to have the dialogue and to, quite honestly, explore opportunities for both self and group healing, and I think that's been pretty consistent.
A lot of initiatives were talked about here today. My question is, well, I talked with a bunch of students, and they want to know, and I want to know, how will you measure your success? How will you be coming back to us in 2 years, 4 years? Will you look at your audit? How will you measure whether you have been successful with all of these initiatives?
So I could start off on that, and then perhaps Kevin could follow up. You mentioned the audit. I think that's crucial for us going through the audit, measuring where we are, getting a sense of baseline. Climate survey, I think, is crucial as well. We ticked off a few of the key programs that we'll be doing where we can make measurable differences in number of faculty, number of students. So I think we can get a handle very quickly on metrics that we can use over the next 4 years to determine how we're doing. Kevin?
So I think one of the things that excited me about taking this opportunity was I determined that there was an organizational commitment and there were resources being committed. I think we're at a stage now where we have to determine what these right fit strategies are. We think the framework will allow us to really be able to utilize metrics to assess that and incorporate the diversity audit and the climate study survey that will allow us to annually assess our efforts and then share the results of that with our campus community in very transparent ways.
Marshall Griffin, KWMU.
Yes. What effect, if any, do you expect from changes happening in Jefferson City from the new higher education commissioner to the soon-to-be new governor, whoever that might be, coming into office next year?
Well, we're working very diligently to engage with our elected officials in Jefferson City and demonstrate to them that we're serious and that we're going to make changes and make improvements.
I would only add that we're very pleased with who's taken over in that position. Dr. Mulligan has experience with us, understands higher education, so I think that's very good. We'll be reaching out and talking with both of the gubernatorial candidates. I think that's important for us to do about some of the issues that we have specifically at MU, and I know that'll be happening at the system level as well.
If I can follow up, any concerns about any further targeting from the Republican-led House and Senate with any potential targeted bills next year?
I'm confident that the state legislature and the leadership in the state is fully aware of the value that the University of Missouri system provides to the state, the gem of an asset it is to the state, and I don't expect any unreasonable behavior on the part of our political establishment.
You know, at the end of the day, while we started off in a kind of a difficult place in January with the state legislators, we ended up in a pretty terrific place, and wherever I've gone, I've tried to be as complimentary as I possibly can be about leadership in the House and Senate that led to a 4% increase in our base budget.
Right here, back.
You mentioned to double the faculty from underrepresented group in the next 4 years. Can I ask what kind of challenges do you see in that kind of direction?
Sure, yeah. So one of the challenges that exists nationally is just a dearth of that level of diversity in the PhD pipeline, right? We see it across the board, but particularly in STEM disciplines. And even in having conversations and trying to establish this relationship with the Southern Regional Education Board, they said, Kevin, listen, I mean, the thought of attempting to increase African-American faculty to 10% is just almost impossible when you consider the dearth in the pipeline than the national average. Now, granted, we know we can improve, but we recognize we're going to be up against that. So we really have to be creative and innovative, right? And if this was a multiple choice question, we'd be answering all of the above each and every time. So we're committed to it, and we recognize that to continue our efforts to be a preeminent system and academic institution, we have to be committed to this.
On the same vein, so to increase it by 13%, that obviously means you're bringing in a lot of minority faculty members. What is generally the rate of attrition? You know, like how
many leave?
How many people leave?
Yeah,
percentage-wise, and versus how many you would be bringing in? How does that work numbers-wise over the next 4 years?
So in most universities, including this one, average rates of turnover are around 3 to 4% a year. The year before last, we had a bit higher because my predecessor had a program of voluntary severance. So I think we can look to that kind of flow of people out of the system and then therefore we can make that up with new people coming into the system. The balances work out.
Well, can I just add one thing? I mean, but to your point, I think we have to be as committed to retention as we are to recruitment, right? And I think that's going to be an important aspect, so that's not lost on us for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
A related question, which you brought up, Dr. McDonald, is that a lot of the pipeline issues center in the STEM disciplines, which are also the fields that the AAU focuses on in their ranking system. Do you expect to see an issue in recruiting those people from those disciplines and keeping AAU rankings?
I don't think so. I mean, I think what's recognized nationally is that we have to do something that we call interrupting the usual, right? We have to look at what we've kind of continually done and recognize we have to change some of that efforts. We have to build relationships like that may be establishing partnerships with historically black colleges, universities, HSIs, Hispanic serving institutions, and others. It may mean ultimately building up our K-12 effort to make sure we can help to kind of close some of the leaks in the pipeline, right? So those relationships are going to be important. Establishing a relationship with other institutions maybe that have a strong emphasis in STEM and high schools and charter schools. But I think we can't leave any stone unturned ultimately to achieve that. And there's some strong existing initiatives out there that I think are worth exploration on our part. So we look forward to exploring those.
I was wondering how far the university system is along in the search for a new president. Do we have any candidates at this point? Can we have an update?
The search is going well. The search is on schedule, and we're very pleased with the candidate pool that we're having. We're hopeful that we'll have someone selected before the end of the year.
Do you know how many candidates you have right now?
No, I'm not going to tell you that.
Rudy, just wanted to clarify, are you looking to, is it a goal to increase by 13% the share of minority underrepresented faculty, or is it to get them to 13%?
That's right. It's really to double the current 6.7% that we have. It would take that to 13.4%.
Over how many years?
4.
4 years. So, what school has ever done that? And can you give us an example of where that's something like, so that kind of goal has been achieved to show that it's realistic?
Yeah, well, I don't know that I can name the actual schools that have actually had that particular percentage goal. I know that a number of schools and schools that I've worked at have had the goal to both increase the recruitment efforts and the retention efforts to increase the compositional diversity of their faculty, and have used a plethora of different strategies to achieve that, some of the strategies that I mentioned today. So I'm encouraged by the work of Rochester Institute of Technology, which over at least the 6.5-year span that I was there, moved to 10.6% of their faculty of color, which put them probably in the top 3 of their peer institutions, right? So I think that's an aspirational goal for us, right? Particularly currently recognizing that we're at 6.7%, and I think the goal is to attempt to shoot for the stars, and I guess if we land on the moon, we'll take that as well.
Great answer.
My question is where are you at right now repairing the university's reputation right now?
So when you mean the university, you mean MU. And I think I ticked off a number of things that we're doing. First of all, let me point out our retention rate has been as good as it's ever been, which I think is terrific. Those students then are also helping us to attract and retain other students. So we're using students to help us to get the word out to other students from their high schools that this is a great place to be at. We're also using social media in ways that I don't fully understand, but people on my staff fully understand, that I think are absolutely impactful and have been shown to be impactful at other schools. In addition to that, we've added more people as recruiters, so we're doubling the number of recruiters we've had over what we had in the past. We'll be doubling down on recruiting within the state. We're putting much more emphasis on the southwestern part of the state than we ever have before. Any number of things of that kind. We'll be rolling out what I hope will be a new media campaign. You'll see an ad during the SEC games. That's the beginning of that campaign. It's our time to lead. So I think we're doing almost everything that any organization can imagine doing to get the word out about what a great university this is and what a terrific place it is to come to school.
Obviously, a lot of this was sparked by the protests almost a year ago now. Are you guys still in contact with that core group that started the protests at all? And what does that relationship look like today?
I've actually been in relative constant contact with a member of the CS1950, and in fact, probably as late as yesterday evening, just kind of talking through some of our efforts, really getting feedback. This framework for us is not something that we try to create in a vacuum. We recognize to vet it, we really truly have to be committed to that. So I have been engaging to get important feedback from this particular member, and we are grateful for this opportunity to engage them. So at Missouri, we're recognizing that this is our time to lead. This is really a new day for us, and I think we're recognizing the importance of engaging our students along the way.
Yeah, I would just add that the framework that Kevin's bringing to Mizzou is a framework that's been used at other universities, similar to the framework that's been used at other universities. And it's a highly successful approach, and so I feel very good about it. It's not so much about looking back to last fall, but looking forward to the next 3 or 4 falls ahead of us.
As you're certainly aware, there was a joint legislative committee put together to review the university system. They're supposed to release some recommendations before next year's legislative session starts. What happens, how would this campus and the system be impacted if they recommend withholding another $8 million from the budget, like what happened earlier this year?
Well, that's a hypothetical question that I hope we'll never have to actually answer in real life. But I didn't get that feeling from the group when I met with them. I met with them right here on this campus. And, I got a very positive feeling from them, actually. And I challenged them to help us get the word out and to explain to the people of Missouri what a terrific asset Mizzou is. And I felt they took that challenge on.
Hi, my name is Zach Newman with KOMU. Many of the people sitting here are interim leadership of some kind. How does that affect the decision-making process going forward?
Well, since I'm the most interim of the interim, I don't know. Are you more interim than me? I don't know. I'll go first, and that is to say, I think I said this when we hired Jim Sturk. I talked to candidates who want to be here because they wanted to be here. And they had the intestinal fortitude to realize that things change and recognize that even permanent, quote, permanent leaders often become rather interim. And we've seen that happen here, and we've seen it happen around the country. So I don't think it's as important, perhaps, in the minds of folks that we hire into these positions as perception might suggest it to be. And I ticked off 4 people that are all permanent. Kevin is permanent. Jim Stark is permanent. Marshall Stewart is permanent. Peggy Haberberger is permanent. Palermo Morris is permanent. Those are 5 key positions. So I feel pretty good about our ability to hire in spite of the interim tag. Mike?
No, I agree. I have always said that I felt interim no matter, even when I was permanent. So it hasn't affected my enthusiasm for doing what I do. I've also indicated that I came back out of my retirement because I love this institution and I have so much respect for it. That hasn't wavered because I'm interim. And I would add that we fully expect that by the first of the next calendar year, we will have a permanent president. And when that position is filled, the rest of the interim positions will quickly be filled as well. So I don't see the interim nature of some of our key people to be an impediment at all to making the kind of progress we're intending to make.
Are the searches already underway to fill those positions immediately? What are the progress of filling in some of those other positions once the new president is in?
Certainly the presidential search is well underway, and we're poised to begin the other searches. The decision has not yet been made to start those searches prior to the coming of the new president, but that is under discussion.
If I may add, bench strength is important, and we have a lot of it here, and we pay attention to that. And we look at succession planning so that we know all of us can get hit by a bus any day of the year, and we have to know where we can go when those things happen. And we feel good about that.
On campus, we're seeking to hire new deans. We have a dean search underway for the vice chancellor and dean of agriculture. We're teeing up a search for the new law dean. Which other one am I? Well, we'll be doing business. I think we'll be finishing up very quickly. That's my sense, if all goes well. Those are all permanent positions.
Hi, Claire Banderas from KBIA. So there's been a lot of conversation about transparency and involvement of student voices when making these decisions. What are like the long-term plans of keeping student voices involved as years go by with these decision-making, and beyond that, involving students not just from the University of Columbia campus, but the students from the other schools in the UM system?
Yeah, so part of that I can answer and then allow others to jump in. Part of that is exploring conversations with students to continue in kind of an advisory capacity to our new division for inclusion, diversity, and equity. At the UM system, in connection with the framework, we'll have an overarching advisory kind of committee that will assess the efforts, the annual efforts of all of the campuses, and we'll have student representation on that committee as well. So I think we're committed to making sure we engage the student voice around every band.
At the graduate student level, we met yesterday with Rachel Bauer, who's the new president of GPC. We have good, strong, open communication with them across my team. And she made clear to us also that they've reinstituted a committee, which is a cross-campus committee of each of the graduate student organizations. And then at the undergraduate level, I've just been amazed, really amazed in my time at Mizzou at how much dialogue there is with the Mizzou Alumni Association. Student Association, also with the Alumni Association. I apologize.
And at the system level, we started about in last January with the board. You know, the board meets on each campus 4 times a year. And we've worked into each of those board meetings a lunch with student leadership on each campus, where the board members and the students actually have lunch and discuss issues. What do you like about your campus? What do you dislike about your campus? What are the problems on your campus? That's a start on having some real communication between student leadership on each campus and the Board of Curators. That seems to be working well. I'm perfectly willing to expand that to even more frequent contacts between the board and students on the campuses. And my assumption is that the board, with the current chair here, maybe we can put her on the spot, would be willing to expand it too if it looks promising.
More
Well,
meetings.
let's not put her on the spot.
That's a great point.
You know, last fall, the demonstrations proved how fragile the administration was in the wake of a lot of things that were going on campus, fights between the chancellor and the president, fights between the chancellor and the deans, disruption in the faculty and other on-campus issues. How do you make sure that those issues, those kind of crisis issues, don't persist into the future once this team has passed? What structures are available to keep those dialogues open, keep the campus unified?
Well, Rudy, as I've said many times, this was a very unique situation at a very unique institution. We've called it a perfect storm. I don't expect another storm like that. But I don't want to dwell on the past. I can't explain to you exactly what happened or why. All I can tell you is what we're doing to move this institution forward. And we are a strong team today with a really solid plan, great support from the Board of Curators, great support from the state of Missouri, great support from all of our constituencies, and we're moving forward.
I've heard a lot about issues, diversity issues issues that were raised by the protests, but I haven't heard much today about how all those other problems that that helped make the administration so fragile at that time are being solved.
So Rudy, I'll take a crack at it then and say this. You know, it's true that when there are fault lines within a management team, stress in fact can open those up and make them even into gaps. We saw some of that last year, no doubt about it. But I think the key is to also realize that stress of that kind with a different group of people can bring them even more closely together and make them even more tightly bound and unified. And I think that's what you see now with the new group of people. It's a new day because we have new people with new ideas and new approaches. And we're all very unified in going forward with those ideas. We're not squabbling with one another. We're actually supporting one another and trying to make sure that we do the best we possibly can by the faculty, the staff, and the students here, and by the state that entrusts us with so much taxpayer money.
One of the problems the system is still facing, obviously, is the drop in enrollment. That was a big financial hit. Is there a financial structure in place right now to make up for that lost revenue?
Okay, so Marissa, no is the answer. I mean, when you lose revenue, you have to do fewer things. We're a cash business. Whatever comes in is what we spend that year, and it's a combination of tuition, state appropriation, and miscellaneous other things such as our IP revenues. So what you've seen, though, is you've seen us and our team really react pretty quickly. 80% of this year's shortfall we took care of right away. Another 20% we took care of using reserve funds, which is sort of our bank account, if you will. And I think we've handled it. I'm very proud of the way the whole group, from faculty, staff, on through to the people on my staff, have handled it. So there's no magic solution. You either have to get smaller when you don't have as much money, and we've done that, or you have to borrow from yourself, and we've done some of that as well. But we've done less of that than just right-sizing ourselves for the future. And, you know, let me add one more time that not all of this was due to last fall, right, and the events of last fall. Part of it was demographic shifts that we knew were coming, right, and they're going to be here with us for 5 or 6 years before there's an uptick again in high school students. Part of it was that border states that border ours, adjusted their own requirements for getting into their state universities. And so we saw a drop the year before last, actually, in those numbers as well. So it's never easy, I won't say that, but we know we have to be able to do this. And I've been really proud of how well the management team and the faculty and the staff have come together to really get us through this year.
Obviously, the university is really big for the Columbia community in terms of employment. So how concerned should Columbia be about the lingering effects of the next 5 or 6 years of lower enrollment in terms of layoffs and resources?
Well, again, I can sort of jump in. It's, you know, I think it's a concern, but at the same time, I've been incredibly impressed by the community itself. So when we were anticipating having layoffs, they actually had job fairs for the people we thought we might have to lay off. So there's been tremendous, I would say, synergy. The city and the business community in the city understands how important we are to them, and we understand how important they are to us, and we've tried very hard to work together.
Do you foresee layoffs in the next few years?
I hope not. We had very few this year. I feel bad saying that because some people did lose their jobs, but the number was 37. It could have been in the hundreds, but thankfully, because of the 4% increase that we got from the state legislature, that really mollified or affected how many cuts we had to make. We'll have to wait and see. That's why we're doing everything we can in marketing and communications to try to bring those numbers back as quickly as we can.
And how much are you focusing on out-of-state versus in-state students?
Well, we have seen more of a drop this year in out-of-state students than in-state students. I would say that we're focusing a lot on in-state students and shoring that up to be sure that we get the numbers where we want them. They're good right now. We want them to be great. And, you know, in the past, I've said this before, Mizzou really didn't have to do a lot of recruiting and marketing because students just came to us. We're in a different era. And that era came about rather abruptly and quickly. So we're doing everything we can to do what many other schools around the country have had to do for years.
At the risk of total embarrassment, I'm going to try the phone one more time. My own phone this time. Sarah Brown of the Chronicle of Higher Education is on the line. Sarah, do you have a question for us today for our speakers?
At this point, I don't think I have. My main question was regarding the enrollment decline this fall and what officials are going to do to remedy that, and that has been answered, so thank you.
Okay, good job. Let's continue. Rudy.
Attendance at Saturday's football game was more than 20% below opening day attendance in 2015. And I'm just curious how much you all attribute that to the reputational hit that the university took, and how much you attribute that to the changeover in the coaching and the uncertainty about how good the team is.
Rudy, there's no way to tease that one apart. That one's even harder than the question of numbers of students and the drop in the number of students. We just can't say. There were a lot of things. You know, we didn't have a particularly exciting season, I would say, last year. That has its effect. It's impossible to know how much of it is due to that, how much of it is due to changes we had to make in ticketing within the stadium that were necessary that other schools have had to do also around the country. I think there's tremendous excitement about Barry Odom and his coaching. And I think we're going to see a really good attendance this week for the Georgia game. So let's hold that question for another week, and we'll get back to you. And if I'm wrong, okay, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. All right?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, since we're talking athletics a little bit, like, what are you doing anything specifically to address student athletes and their role, obviously, in kind of the way that this escalated in the public eye last year, and maybe avoiding a similar situation next year where they're threatening not to play or something like that?
So I want to harken back to what Mike said first, and that is I think it was a pretty unique situation last year, one that we're unlikely to ever see again. One of my key questions to all AD candidates was, what would you have done? And uniformly, the answer I got from the best ones was, it never would have happened in the first place. We would have known that that was afoot. We would have been in there talking to our students. We would have talked to them. What is it you're trying to accomplish? How can we help you accomplish it in a more meaningful way? There are lots of things. Secondly, before we hired Barry Odom, we talked about that also. And Barry is absolutely committed to these young men on his football team as people, right? Not as just chess pieces that we move around, but as people. And that really impressed us. Both Mike and I interviewed Barry before we said yes, and I think we came away feeling that this is a guy who had a lot of humanity and really understood how to work closely with young people in this era who are the intersection of many different things.
The athletics department has committed themselves to engaging their student athletes in regard to the conversations around diversity and inclusion. So they're Mizzou Made, they're bringing in a RISE initiative that really tries to incorporate this into the minds of our student athletes. So I'm really pleased with the proactive steps they're taking.
Time for one more. Yes, in the back here.
Hi, Hank Kobler, 93.9 The Eagle. I was wondering if, you mentioned a lot about not letting this happen as far as with the protests escalating the way it did. How do you balance that with also letting athletes kind of use their platform to express themselves on important issues?
So athletes are student athletes, first and foremost. So as students, they can express themselves, and we expect that they will. But what we would do is work with them to try to find the most appropriate way to do that, whether it's as individuals, whether it's group, or what have you. But we do not in any way intend to limit their constitutional rights.